Yo, what's up? Welcome back to another episode of the Sauce. It's late Sunday night. It is 2:59 a.m. on the dot. This weekend, I think I had the worst weekend of my betting career. I'm not even joking. I lost too much money to even make jokes about. It was horrible. Not a combination of some really bad picks on my part and then some bad luck tossed in there. The highlight of my day today was the Chargers pushing. That was the highlight of my day, was the Chargers pushing the 3. And the officiating helped with that. Like, I don't even know if I deserved that push. And then the Seahawks, man, giving up that touchdown. Oh, my God. All right, let's just put it in the past. Apologies to everyone who tailed. I lost a lot of money right along with you. It was a horrible day for me. But let's move on to Monday Night Football. Broncos on the road in Buffalo. This line is now Buffalo -7, which is down from 7.5. Total sitting at 47.5.
Welcome to the Sauce. The Sauce. Sauce. Hey, get the sauce.
So there's a lot of people betting Denver here. Public's pretty split even. Sharp action is definitely on Denver. Line's been bouncing back and forth. It opened at 7.5, dropped down to 7, then went back up to 7.5. As I'm recording this at 3 a.m., I'm pretty much seeing nothing but 7s across the board. So let's start with injury reports. Denver offensively is just missing one piece. The tight end Dolchich, he's on the IR. He hasn't been on the field in a month, and he's barely played this entire season though. On the defensive side of the ball, the Broncos definitely do have some issues in the secondary. Kareem Jackson's still suspended for the dirty hits or whatever that was. He's missed 2 games already. This will be his last. I believe this is the last one he's gonna miss. I think he's gonna be back next week. Quan Williams is still out. He hasn't played all season. He's a corner. And to make matters worse, the guy that would be starting in place of Kareem Jackson at safety during this suspension, he's been out all year also. So Denver's got their 4th safety starting for the time being. And keep in mind, this is a Broncos defense that just recently got rid of Frank Clark and Randy Gregory. Now, neither of those two had played much this season, and they weren't really huge factors either, but thought it was worth mentioning. On the Buffalo side, Bills offensively are completely ready to roll. Dawson Knox is on the IR, but Dalton Kincaid seems to be the number 1 tight end on that team right now anyway. On the defensive side, as we know, the Bills are wrecked with injuries, and that's been the case for a while now. Tre'Davious White, I think he's out for the year. Daquan Jones, defensive tackle, he's out. Matt Milano's out. I believe he's out for the year as well. Micah Hyde, you know what? Let me double check that right now. Yes, Micah Hyde is confirmed out. Terrell Bernard, he's listed as questionable, but I actually think he's going to play. And it gets even worse. Check this out. So obviously, Tre'Davious White out, as we know, corner for Buffalo. Their backup, well, shouldn't say backup. He's probably their 4th corner on the depth chart. Elam, he's out as well. And then their 5th corner, the guy after him, Christian Benford, he's out as well. So the Bills missing 3 of their top 5 corners and a safety. That secondary's in rough shape. So let's match these 2 teams up on the field. And the first thing I want to address is the complete 180 we've seen from the Broncos defense. Everyone's talking about it. Through the first 5 games, the Broncos were looking like probably the worst defense in the NFL, allowing over 450 yards per game and 36 points per game. In their last 3, just 15 points per game allowed and 331 yards per game allowed. It's important to take note that the Dolphins game was in there, though, and Miami put up 70 points and 726 yards on them, which is definitely skewing the numbers pretty badly. If you take the Miami game out, the drop in yards per game allowed is only 50, which isn't nearly as extreme. So how are the Broncos allowing nearly half the points per game despite just a 50 yards per game drop? They tightened things up in the red zone. In the last 3 games, opponents are scoring touchdowns on just 27.3% of their red zone trips against the Broncos. That's 2nd best in the NFL in that time span. The reason I'm bringing these numbers up is this matchup is strikingly similar to Week 8. Thursday Night Football, Bucks on the road in Buffalo. I had Bucks +7. Buffalo absolutely dominated the game. 427 yards of offense, 7 of 13 on 3rd downs. Josh Allen was ripping the Bucks secondary to shreds, but they only finished with 24 points. Tampa's defense looked terrible, but you know what the Bucks do really well this year? Defend in the red zone, so there's some similarities here. But it's not all the same, because at the time, Tampa's pass defense was getting torn up week after week. Josh Allen, CJ Stroud, even Desmond Ridder had a great game throwing the ball in the Bucks. That's not the case with Denver. In the last 3 weeks, the Broncos defense is allowing just 6.3 yards per pass attempt and an 80.9 passer rating. That's 12th and 10th best in the NFL. The reason these numbers are a little tough to take in, again, this is from the last 3 games. 2 of those 3 games were against the Chiefs, and division games always have a tendency of being weird and not making much sense. And the 3rd game was home against Jordan Love. So the Broncos have been defending the pass well, but I don't know if there's enough evidence here to trust them slowing down Josh Allen. And it certainly doesn't help that the Broncos tend to run a lot of man coverage. 47.7% of the Broncos defensive snaps this year have been in man, 12th most in the NFL, so they're pretty balanced, but they do like to run a lot of man. But they're playing Buffalo here. Josh Allen and Diggs absolutely crush man coverage, 2nd in passer rating and 3rd in yards per pass attempt against man. So the Broncos are most likely going to be forced to run more zone coverage than they like, and that could be a problem because the Broncos have been repeatedly cooked in zone coverage all season. 30th in passer rating allowed and 32nd in net yards per attempt allowed when in zone coverage this season. And another thing I really don't like about the Broncos defense, yes, they've looked significantly better in the last 3 weeks, but they've also played 3 teams that don't really run the ball. Isaiah Pacheco started off the season strong on the ground, but Chiefs really haven't been able to get the run game going as much recently. Remember, this is still the worst run defense in the NFL. They're dead last in every major metric: yards per carry allowed, rushing DVOA, and PFF rushing grade. Now, I know the Bills' run game has been fading, but look at their schedule. Early on in the season, they played some defenses they could run on. The Raiders, the Commanders, the Dolphins. Look at their last 5 games. The Jacksonville Jaguars have an elite run defense. Giants aren't great, but I actually like that defense. I think it's undervalued, and at the time, before they traded Leonard Williams, they were actually playing well. At New England, Patriots have an elite run defense. Tampa's got a great run defense. And then at Cincinnati, whose defense is okay, but Buffalo was down 2 touchdowns at the half and they had to abandon the run. They still averaged 4.3 yards per carry there. The Bills haven't had a legitimate opportunity to get the run game going in a month and a half, and Denver hasn't seen a team that could run the ball in a month. Bottom line here, when I first looked at this matchup, I was like, yo, Denver's defense is coming around. But when I take a deeper look, I don't know if I can count on the Broncos defense consistently making stops against Josh Allen here. Now, on the other side of the ball, I am really interested to see what kind of game plan Sean Payton's going to cook up for this one, because the Broncos have been surprisingly efficient running the ball this year. They're averaging 4.8 yards per carry as a team, which is 2nd best in the NFL, 12th in DVOA, and 8th in adjusted line yards. And on paper, the Bills have been terrible against the run this season. They're allowing 4.9 yards per carry on the year. That's 30th in the NFL. They're 15th in DVOA, 7th in adjusted line yards. But here's the thing. Teams haven't really been running the ball in Buffalo recently. The Bills were getting run on early in the season, but in the last 4 games, the Bills are allowing just 90 rushing yards per game on 3.71 yards per carry. I'm not saying the Bills' run defense is good at all. I'm just saying the numbers from earlier in the season, in addition to the injuries, have people thinking that this run defense is absolute trash, and I would definitely disagree with that. Now, as I mentioned before, Buffalo secondary definitely banged up here, so we do need to take a look at Russell Wilson's numbers, and it's kind of weird. Check this out. So through the first 4 games, Russell Wilson had some of the best passing numbers in the NFL. He was up there in passer rating. He was averaging over 253 yards per game and a 108 passer rating. But in the last 4 games, we're seeing his passing numbers fall off. Under 150 yards per game. Passer rating's down at 92, which isn't terrible. Yards per attempt is down from 7.68 to 5.93. It's not that Russ Wilson has been bad. He's just not getting the ball downfield nearly as much in the last 4 games. And I think a huge reason for that has been the pass protection. Broncos are really struggling to protect Russell Wilson. They're 29th in adjusted sack rate and 31st in pressure rate allowed. And Buffalo's got a pass rush. I mean, this defense has a ton of injuries, but the edge rushers are still there. I mean, the pass rush is still there. Greg Rousseau, Von Miller, Leonard Floyd, I mean, they're all still there. They're healthy. They're 7th in adjusted sack rate and 13th in pressure rate on the season. We do have to mention, though, Russell Wilson has handled pressure very well this year. He's 12th in yards per attempt, 7th in completion percentage, and 3rd in passer rating when pressured this year. Now, does that mean I think the Broncos offense can keep up with Buffalo's? No, probably not, but it is intriguing. Before we get to my picks for the game, I do have an underdog pick'em for this one. Russell Wilson higher than 21.5 rushing yards. He's been scrambling a lot recently. I think part of that is the pass protection is just not holding up. So Russ Wilson higher than 21.5 rushing yards. Javonte Williams lower than 54.5 rushing yards. I feel like everyone's betting his over. Everyone has this idea that the Bills' run defense is terrible, and I think it's undervalued. Stephon Diggs higher than a half touchdown. I think Stephon Diggs gets in the end zone. If they're going to try to run man coverage, he will. If you don't have an Underdog fantasy account, it's available in any state highlighted in this map. So if you're in one of these states, head over to the website, Underdog Fantasy, or you can download the app. When you make your account, make sure you use the promo code BET, B-E-T. That'll get you a $100 deposit bonus match. So you deposit $100, they will give you a free $100 to play with. As far as what I'm betting, I'm going square in this one. There's a lot of people taking Denver here. And when I first looked at this one early in the week, I was on Denver too. But when I looked through everything, I really started liking the Bills. And now the line's been bet down to an even 7. I'm on Buffalo here, and I'm going to take them in the first half as well. I got it at 3.5. I got Bills first half minus 3.5 at minus 120, and I took the Bills full game minus 7. If you want our top bets for all sports parlays of the day, or you want to join our Discord, head over to KyleKirms.com. The information's right there on the homepage. Monday Night Football. Good Lord, do I need a win. Let's put this terrible weekend in the past as quickly as possible. Again, apologies to anyone who tailed this weekend. It's truly awful. Let's turn things around. Let's get back in the green. Remember to bet responsibly, and I'll talk to you in the Discord.